Welcome back to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing performance management, metrics, and effectiveness, because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders, joined by Jessica Grazer, the VP of Marketing here at NinjaCat. Most companies say they want to innovate, but very few actually know when it's possible. Our guest today, Dr. Cecilia Dones, has built her career around finding those rare inflection points when change moves from theory to reality and breaking through. As founder of Three Standard Deviations, Cecilia helps leaders bridge two worlds that often speak past each other: the math behind AI and the humans who have to make it work. She's led analytics and data science teams at global agencies like Mindshare and Zenith. She's also guided data and analytics strategy for enterprise brands like L'Oreal, Moet Hennessy, and Reckitt, helping them build the systems, talent, and governance needed to turn marketing data into business intelligence. Beyond the boardroom, Cecilia teaches at some of the world's top business schools, Columbia, MIT, Sloan, and Wharton, and she currently serves on the ANA's MarTech Advisory Board, where she's helping shape how our industry approaches data and AI. In this conversation, we talk about what it really means to get AI ready, from building habits of data hygiene to knowing your organization's true risk appetite, and to using AI not to just accelerate, but to diagnose where your systems and cultures need to evolve. If you've ever felt the tension between wanting to innovate and knowing your organization might not be ready, this conversation is for you, so let's get to it.
Welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here. I wanted to start with the name of your business, Three Standard Deviations. Super interesting name. And I've heard you speak about it in other interviews, so I just thought I would ask you about that outlier moment that kind of changes everything. In data terms, that's where extraordinary events live, and in business terms, that's where innovation happens. So how has that concept shaped your philosophy on analytics and leadership?
That's a very good question, and it is the name of my organization. What we do is we help business leaders, both technical and not technical, deliver on AI outcomes by combining the maths and the people part of things. And so doing that in a way that's like recognizable, measurable, and definitely causes change inside of an organization. And how that's related to Three Standard Deviations is that I firmly believe that, as with many things in the natural world, if we assume it to believe that it's distributed like a bell curve, maybe some of us are familiar with that from our school days, that the majority of the time you're going to spend time at the mean, at the middle, at the, hey, every day. Today is okay. The sun is out. I'm caffeinated. Life is good. And I'm here with you, so even better. However, those moments that change the trajectory of your life, the conversation where you said yes and you didn't know what was going to happen, and suddenly you're following a different path, by definition of a Gaussian or normal curve, it's always at the third standard deviation. So by definition, it's rare. So to recognize those moments, that's up to us as individuals. And so that's what I try to do at the individual level, so at the personal level, but I also try to help organizations find that as well. Most of the time, when you're trying to quote unquote AI things, you're going to have kind of a mid experience. My students have taught me the word mid.
Mid.
However, yes. However, you get that serendipitous moment where, oh, okay, the AI is actually starting to deliver value we're seeing. That serendipitous moment, it's rare at the moment, just because we're all trying to figure it out in the ecosystem. But over time, we'll figure out what the patterns of what makes that successful look like. And so helping organizations doing that and understanding where we are and respecting where we are, that's kind of where the name comes from.
I love that philosophy and
good.
that framework.
Wow.
As it pertains to AI, though, everyone's kind of chasing average because, in a way, AI was built to deliver kind of the most average or expected outcome. So the real breakthroughs seem to come from when people dig deeper or have context and data to build something meaningful on top of it. So When it comes to businesses who are successful with AI implementation, what do they tend to get right before layering on AI and automation so that they get something better than average?
That's true. Okay. I think a few things because, as with most wonderful, delicious meals, it takes a few more ingredients than just one. So, the first component, and I think this one's foundational, I was most recently at a data conference. And so, those of us who are data leaders, data practitioners, we were at it, and we've been around the block a few times. And so, many of us have multiple years of experience. No matter what technological changes happen, we all agree on the same thing: data management, data governance. Those are foundational capabilities every organization has to get right. And it's one of those things where it's like the analogy I tend to use is it's like learning to brush your teeth. When you're a child, it is a to do. You have to get the bubblegum toothpaste. You have to get the character on the toothbrush that is your favorite character. Your parents have to help you with the timer so you do it for enough time. But embedding that habit of hygiene around your teeth has long-term impacts that are generally positive. And so building that capability from a data perspective, data hygiene, which in more technical terms we tend to call it data management, data governance, is such a foundational component before we start adding maths to it, before we start throwing AI at it. It's a foundational ingredient. The second ingredient, I would argue, is that the culture of the organization, so the people side of things, has to be ready for experimentation. And what that means is that we have to empower our people as leaders to be open to the idea of an experiment. I have a hypothesis, I have a question, I'm going to try something, and there is a likelihood I will fail. But that failure is a lesson. In many organizations, they say they want to be innovative. They want to be first. They want that first
Right.
mover advantage. I want that AI advantage. But in reality, the culture is not a first mover culture. It's a fast follower culture. And that's where um, I find organizations that are aware of which situation they're in and they're cognizant of their culture, they can play within those constraints and then extract the value from AI. So getting your data right is super good and always going to be good, regardless of the technology. Understanding your culture, so that way you can motivate people to utilize the tools as they come up. That's also extremely important. And then the third component, I teach AI ethics and responsible AI. So that's my bias. The third component I'm always going to say is a good dose of humility. If someone says they have all the answers, my critical thinking hat goes on and I say, really? You know everything? That's crazy. I love that for you. I'm curious about that. Let's unpack that. Um, Anyone who says they're an AI expert, I always try to say, that's lovely. That's great. In what in specific? And the reason why I say that is I want to say I follow the news. I want to say I read as many papers as possible, but it's just not possible to keep up. And that's okay. But that humility means I don't have all the answers, so I need others to help me find the answers. And that's what I want for every organization. It becomes a learning culture when we do it that way.
So I love that it starts with math, and you drop the Gaussian bomb on you, and you're talking about bell curves, and then you end up talking about habits and beliefs in action. And so it seems like, oh, you got to get your data right, but then you're talking about culture and behavior. And when you were saying most people aren't first movers, they're fast followers, here's my question: what happens when people are telling everyone, let's be open-minded, let's be experimental, and they run whack experiments over and over and over? So everyone's like, I'm done having an open mind about your ideas, Gary. You know what I mean? And they're like, let's just experiment. And they're like, no. So one, experimental open-mindedness calls, people are burnt out on being open-minded because so many people poured whack stuff in there. One. Two, what do you do when a first mover is taught, when a fast follower speaks and acts and thinks they're a first mover? That's what, like, there's a disconnect in some way from the leadership and the vision where the culture, you really have to have a culture. It's because this fool has told me numerous times we need to be experimental and that we are first movers, but I know we're fast followers. and our culture isn't ready. So I'm just like, people are talking about it. There's people who benefit from it that are not saying half as much. They're not being half as talkative. What's the difference in between these things? I know it's a lot. It's a compound question. I think there were 3 in there. Take it at your leisure.
Fair, and I already apologize in advance. I'm
you.
not sure if I'm going to capture
Oh,
all 3
perfect.
questions.
I'll remind
But
you.
fair, fair. But I will respond as I understood it. For organizations that maybe are not necessarily self-aware and they don't like the idea of being called a fast follower, they
Oh,
must be a first
who
mover.
wouldn't? Yeah.
Well, you're also in the front line, so you make the most mistakes. Typically, in those scenarios, I tend to lean harder into the quantification of risk. That sounds like a multisyllabic long word.
Love those.
Fair, but it's what I find is in those organizations, the conversations are very much about the upside, the potential opportunity, and so those numbers sound really, really big. However, the reality is when you tell them, okay, that's the potential upside, but here's the quantification of risk if we do something wrong. If we run this experiment and it does not work our way, this is how much risk or potential loss we could have to the organization. When you start to have that more balanced quantification of the conversation, that's when you finally start to get leaders to say, oh, we're actually a little bit more risk averse. So we would rather have other organizations or other players in the ecosystem learn what's best practice and we follow quickly. So that tends to begin the conversation around shifting mindset. But it is only a beginning to the conversation. Anytime we want to change minds,
Yeah.
it's not a one and done.
Yeah.
It's a yes.
That's
So
why
Do you
people.
find often,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, I was wondering, when you come into organizations like that, do you find often that they are self-aware of their culture, or
Right.
is it more of a exploratory, like drawing out to get
um,
them to define
mhm.
the culture in those terms?
Right.
Yes, yes, yes. Most often, you have some folks, and I don't like doing broad strokes because there's always going to be, anytime you have a group of people, there's always going to be people who are fitting any criteria. So, for the most part, they're generally not aware, but it just takes a few conversations, I would say, with somebody who's seen other situations to be able to help them see and put the mirror to their faces. Whether or not they want to see it, that's another issue. If they don't want to acknowledge it, then I would say, as a leader, uh, those are the points where I would try to manage expectations as much as possible. Because when there is a cognitive dissonance, so if there is a separation between what's reality and what's the culture of the organization, typically the expectations out of change will be outsized. Meaning, okay, if we quote unquote AI this, suddenly we're going to be making X or Y or X times Y millions. Show me that we're making all this money. That doesn't happen. And so, as a leader in the data practice, then we have to start really managing what the expectations are. That's reasonable and realistic. I tend to be pragmatic about this when it comes to AI applications.
For the organizations that kind of get it right, they understand who they are, where they're coming from, and
Mhm.
have clear goals in mind. What benefits are they reaping right now? What kind of changes are you seeing happen that can inspire others?
Yeah. So, one use case I don't see often talked about, and I can limit the scope to be a little bit more marketing focused, is that the wonderful thing about AI systems and automation in particular is that when you try to automate something and your system is actually quite brittle, or there's a lot of broken pieces or disjointed pieces, or the data doesn't flow completely well, or oh wait, here's a actual part of our process where we literally stop the machine and we interject with people and a whole other process that we weren't really fully aware of. The moment you try to automate that with AI or any kind of automation system, you will be exposed. And it's beautiful in the sense that you see where you're fragile in your ecosystem. You see where you're fragile or brittle in your processes. And so you literally, it's screaming at you, here's the feedback that tells you this is the roadmap of things we have to fix so we can actually extract value. So I love that. That AI can help us do those things. So be quite diagnostic of what's actually not working for our organization that we can't see very well. So that sets you up for once your data is good and clean and we're practicing data hygiene, we're brushing our teeth, and you've already addressed the self-awareness issue around the culture, so we're experimenting. That's where you can start to we are starting to use AI to diagnose where our processes are broken or could use improvement, or maybe they're not really ready for AI, or maybe it's not supposed to have AI.
Right.
That's also an outcome. That's when the machine starts to move in the right direction. And
So
where
interesting that flipping it, the model, like you said, I feel like people mostly want to use AI to accelerate, but the idea of putting the mirror up again to help it be diagnostic and reflective, that's so interesting.
And,
And I can see the value in
and
that.
it goes on to this next question because I'm saying it isn't a binary. It ends up being that you need human judgment and machine efficiency. And I think heretofore, we have decided it's my guts, we're going with my guts, or we're going with what the machine tells us. And I think you mentioned that there's a benefit of exposing the cracks, but where is that balance in between human judgment and machine efficiency? Because the machine might show you some of those things, but you still need to use your judgment, but your judgment needs to be there to know how to get the machine to find the inefficiencies. What's the balance?
So I tend to frame most analytics, and I'm going to generalize again. Analytics projects, data projects, AI projects with a similar framework, meaning we do all this to help inform decisions and actions that the business will take to reach some kind of outcome. So the outcome could be make more money. That's a pretty common one. Or it could be to create a new business line. So open up a new territory of opportunity. That's another business outcome. But nonetheless, it's decisions and actions. And so I'm always curious about, especially in organizations that are risk averse, okay, we need to do all the maths. We have to do all the analytics. We have to throw all our data scientists at it. We have to AI this. And I say, okay, the action the business is going to take, one, is it reversible? And then two, if it goes wrong, what's the size of that impact? Is it really negative or not so negative? And we can actually fix it. I tend to be pragmatic in the sense that I am more of an empiricist, meaning if it is something that we can experiment into and learn for our specific context, oh, so much better. What irks me, and this is where I find distinction between organizations that are quite successful in utilizing technologies versus those who continue to evolve and have learning lessons, is that copying some other organization's homework does not necessarily mean you've learned the lesson. And the reason why
that's a huge hold on, the whole business book section just exploded. Like what?
I'm okay with inspiration for sure.
Okay.
Be inspired by your competitors, just as they are inspired by you. You are all competitors. However, if you actually want something that's embedded specific to your organization and is a reason why it's a strategic moat for your organization, copying your competitors' homework will not help. There's too much nuance that's specific to your organization, the people, its process, its platforms, that you have to try it for yourself. And so that's where I find that, okay, it's nice to know what your competitors are doing, but at the end of the day, you have to make the right decisions for your own organization.
Speaking of a competitive space, agencies, we work with a lot of agencies, marketing agencies. I know that's your experience is very deep, having worked at some of the biggest and best in data analyst roles. How do you see roles like data analysts or media strategists within the agencies evolving in this new role? Are those roles still relevant? Will they be relevant? Are they going to be something different?
So the idea that somebody is going to have to interpret and translate outputs from analytics data and machine AI, that is not going to go away because we're always trying to make sense of our environment. Whether or not we call it data analyst, I don't know. In my own personal work history, I've been given relabeling, retitling numerous times, even though I'm doing the same job, just because that's in the effort to be more clear or more contemporary. We changed our titles. And so I wouldn't get so fixated on the name of it, but the underlying behaviors, I don't think that's going to go away. As a media strategist, the typical canned answer from everyone is yes, it's going to evolve. I think the distinction between buyers and sellers will be an interesting distinction to follow very soon. And the reason why I say this, and I may have said this in other forums as well, is that if we remember the very, very early days, and apologies for dating myself now, earlier days of the internet, or if we remember maybe not too long ago, but 2008 in the US and globally, there was a financial crisis. And so there was a significant amount of shift in human resources from different sectors. And so the advertising and marketing sector received a significant amount of talent that came from banking, came from financial services.
Yeah.
And so what is the mindset of these individuals? What are the mindset of traders? What are the mindset of people who work with the stock market? And so, no surprise, programmatic. No surprise, ad networks. We converted it to programmatic. And so, no surprise, we want the machines to find the arbitrage moment, so that way we can extract the maximum amount of value in the ecosystem.
Right.
And so, I mentioned that because if you actually go to the New York Stock Exchange and actually look at the floor, there are still individuals that would have titles like trader that are on the floor still working. But are they as numerous as maybe in the heydays of the 1980s, where you would see all the pictures in the actual tear sheets of and receipts, paper?
Yeah.
No. So with a technological change of buy side, sell side, and doing things algorithmically, that kind of role has reduced. However, do we still have a whole bunch of people in the banking sector making all sorts of decisions around, okay, where to invest, where not to invest? Yes, of course. So the underlying skills don't go away. We just relabel it and shift it. So for a media strategist, I would say the challenge for them is very soon, and this is more the AI ethics side of things, very soon anything we see through our screens, anything that we see in our screens, our computer screens, our mobile phones, anything we hear through our screens, so or audio outputs, we won't know if it's real. We do not have credibility signals. We don't have authenticity signals. So an advert with some kind of claim could actually be an AI hallucination, or it could be somebody trying to play around with AI and just thought this advert was funny and put it out there into the internet, nothing to do with the brand. And so because we can't trust what we see and what we hear through our technology screens and audio, how does a brand decide, how does the brand communicate at all that, hey, you can still trust me, consumer, or hey, when I'm talking to you, consumer, this is the actual real message? The media strategists have a significant role because that's a really thorny problem to try to solve.
So to put a little bit of finer point on it, the titles might change, but what skills or mindsets do you think are going to be required, regardless of what the title is, to make those marketers successful moving forward?
Yes. So I call it durable skills. I do not call it soft skills because we say hard skills like, ooh, technical, maths, science, and soft skills, oh,
Poetry.
Communications. It's not soft. Anytime you've had a client be upset with you, anytime you've had a negotiation not go well,
That's hard.
it's not soft.
Yeah.
So I tend to call it durable. And the reason why I call it durable is that regardless of the technology, these are the things that we all need to continue to have in our toolkits. So that way we continue to create value. And so it's critical thinking. So when we no longer can trust what we see or hear, how do we know we can actually move forward with this information. Critical thinking, I would say creativity. So yes, the machines are very, very good at summarizing. However, that innovation, that spark, that third standard deviation moment still comes from people. Creativity, collaboration. I have yet, until we are told otherwise, the $1 billion unicorn that is done by one person, I have not seen. So until then, we are still animals of gregarious groups. We still need others. So your ability to collaborate with others is still going to be very, very critical. And then communication. So being able to share ideas. And that's how we get things done as a group. So those 4 things.
You just described some of my favorite people because they all use that often and regularly. So I look in the mirror, look at your context, look at your AI stack, think of how you can implement or adopt, and all of these things that Cecilia is talking about. If people want to learn more and connect, obviously subscribe to this Substack, but tell us where we can connect with you directly.
Yeah, no worries. So I do have a Substack, Signal and Connection. So find me there, as well as you can definitely find me on LinkedIn.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese or chocolate?
Oh, chocolate.
Oh, it is tending to be more chocolate. Later in the day, it's cheese. Let's talk later. Okay, croissants or scones?
Oh, croissant.
What do you think, Jess?
Oh yeah, croissant.
What was I thinking? I was like, maybe somebody loves scones. Anyway, scones is a letdown? A letdown. Okay, anyway. I didn't say biscotti because throw those into the ocean. No? Okay, we'll talk later.
An ocean of coffee. They need an ocean of coffee to taste good.
Brick. Okay, window seat, aisle seat.
Window.
Jess?
Same, yeah. I like to sleep.
I have to use
Yeah, exactly.
I have to use the aisle because my legs are long. Okay, anyway. Art museum, science museum.
Isn't it the same museum?
Get out of here.
Divergence.
Oh no, it is. Okay, and then I was going to put history and I was like, wait, hold on. But okay, a place where they might have more depictorial images of historic nature, and then somewhere where they're focusing in on the natural sciences.
Oh, I love natural sciences.
Okay, all right. So we'll go there. All right. Lunch with Pedro Pascal or dinner?
Oh, good question. Lunch.
What do you think, Jess?
I think lunch, because then you have the opportunity to continue and also have dinner.
And
And it goes so well.
we could make a day.
Strategic, like that.
We could make a day of this, Pedro. Okay, and finally, the symphony or the opera?
Symphony.
Is there any reason why?
I love listening to music without words.
And opera, oh, are they singing so much? So many words. I think that was the right answer. It wasn't the right answer, but it's the correct answer.
Right answer.
It is the right answer. Yay!